Thanks so much for joining us. This is I believe, the third installation of this webinar between the Physician's Edge and the Marketing Nice Guys. It's always a pleasure to have Tim and Bonnie here with us. They're a wealth of knowledge, as most of you have seen over the last couple of months. So we're super excited to learn about digital marketing and website user experience best practices for your healthcare businesses. I'm Ryan Chankogo, co-founder of the Physician's Edge, strategy officer with Key Surgeries, and friend and colleague of Tim and Bonnie's, and I'll serve as a moderator today, and I'll help with any tech support behind the scenes. So send me a message through the chat if you have any questions or concerns. Just a couple quick housekeeping things. Bonnie and Tim will send the slides after the presentation, and this recording will be uploaded to the Marketing Nice Guys YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe now. That said, you heard their introductions. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tim Ito, principal of Marketing Nice Guys.
All right, thanks, Ryan. We appreciate it. And again, we appreciate being on today. Digital marketing and website UX best practices for healthcare businesses. So for us, this is a really key area of digital marketing. I think if you think about websites in general, they really are the foundation for everything you do in digital. And, again, there are some exceptions like companies that are only app-based or companies that are only about maybe they're an offline presence and they don't have much of an online presence. But other than those two things in digital, your website's going to be the foundation for everything. And if you think about it, it's like this. Like you could have the best marketing campaign in the world. You could drive to a website, and if your website is bad, those individuals aren't going to convert. You're not going to get the leads you want. You're not going to get the e-commerce you need. You're not going to be able to get the people to kind of look at other pages that you want. So website UX is a critical aspect of that. And we're going to dive into that today. A couple things that, you heard our introductions. Bonnie and I run Marketing Nice Guys. We're a marketing consulting and training firm here based out of the Washington, D.C. area. We're here to help you. Our basically mission is to help you as a small business, as a healthcare business, excel in digital marketing. A few things we're not going to talk about today before we go to the agenda. One is choosing a CMS. So because we're going to assume you have an existing website, we're going to just talk about that website. A few things, though, you want to think about, and one area that we do see a lot of companies make some mistakes in, which is they do their own website. In other words, they developed it themselves. They don't use tools like WordPress or, let's say, Squarespace or something else to do it. And I think what ends up happening is that you can't change that website. We would strongly encourage you, unless there's a specific need you have that can't be satisfied by those other services, is to make sure that you choose some sort of content management system that allows you to manage your website actively. Okay, so we're not going to talk about that today, but we are going to kind of just dive in on some other areas. And here, Bonnie's going to cover the agenda.
Yeah. So thanks for the intro, Tim. So for our agenda, we're going to talk about basically the 7 user experiences areas that you can improve on your healthcare website. How SEO plays a role, and how SEO and user experience can be handled together. How you should create your brand narrative and telling the story, and so that you can engage your users when they come onto your site. What you can do, how you can modify the site to capture better leads, and create form fills when user come onto your landing pages. And then we're just going to talk about how Marketing Nice Guys, we have solutions that help in each one of those areas, followed by a Q&A session. So yeah, let's get started. All right, so we're going to be focusing on the 7 areas just on a high level, and Tim is going to walk, and we'll touch base on each one of this area in detail. But the main areas that we are going to concentrate on are the speed of the website, the navigation, the experience, responsiveness, which is a big deal right now, personalization, how you can do that to better engage with your users, search, visual design, the look and feel, and then colors and fonts. So that's on the user experience side. So Tim, you want to talk about the speed?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we've done in past webinars is we've talked about page speed. And the example we give typically is that if your site doesn't load within 2 seconds, people are going to leave, right? They either think there's something wrong or they don't want to wait. People are very, very, very impatient. So one thing that you can do when you think about the user UX, and again, UX stands for user experience, right? So one of the big areas of user experience is going to be site speed. You can go to, this is an easy tool. There are other tools out there, but this is the popular one. It's Google Page Speed Insights, and you can just Google it. You can find the page. You can enter in a URL and you can come up with the speed of any page anywhere on the web. So let's take a look at one of the pages that we are looking at, which is HCA Healthcare. Many of you know HCA is one of the largest healthcare providers in the country. And if you actually run this page through a speed test, it's 16 out of 100 in mobile. And obviously you want to be somewhere in the 80s or 90s, right? So this is an example. And the reason we provide this example is that this is one of the largest healthcare providers in the country. They have resources, right? They actually just redesigned their website and they did a better job redesigning it recently, but it's 16 out of 100 in mobile. That means it's really slow. That means people that are coming to the website, it's taking a long time to load, particularly from a mobile device. It's a little bit better on desktop. And the reason you see that is because typically, when you have developers develop your website, they develop it in a desktop. They don't tend to look at it and see the performance on mobile. Overall, it's rather bad. What you can do as a small business is that you can go in and test any page on your website, and then Google will give you recommendations for how to improve that speed. Typically, what you see with page speed is that the speed is affected by a few things. Really large images, for example, that aren't compressed very well. You see it with issues around your CSS, which is your style sheet, or your JavaScript. That's sort of excess JavaScript that you don't need. That's slowing the load of your page. So take a look at that. It's something that you can kind of give to your developers, the people who do your website, and have them take a look and see what they can do to speed it up. Bonnie, do you have anything to add there, just in terms of like speed in general?
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, that's pretty much covers it. The only thing that I would add is, and we will talk about this in the SEO slide, but page speed, all these factors play an important role in SEO, and page speed Absolutely. Is very important for SEO, for ranking your sites higher for keywords that you want to rank for. So to pay close attention to how your website is loading is important.
That's very important. Okay, navigation. There's a couple areas that we see when, and again, one of the things we don't want to do is we don't want to just call out people and, talk about websites, but this just happened to be one we found, okay? There's a couple areas about navigation, which is sort of how people navigate right along the site. And there's two areas, is keeping the labels really customer focused, right? So it's about the customer, not about you. A lot of times what happens is that sites will design websites, but they'll design it around their internal requirements. Oh, we have these business lines, so we're going to design the site around those, rather than using what customers are looking for, right? And if they happen to match what your internal structure is, great. But if it doesn't, you want to try to use, to the extent you can, customer-focused labels. Okay. The other thing is keep it thin. And there's a couple reasons to keep it thin, right? One is that you want to try to get to the content area as quick as possible. That's good for SEO. It's good for a lot of other things, right? If you look at this example we have here, this is Health Tech Solutions. And again, we don't want to call out anybody, and that's not the point. But if you look, that header is taking up 30% of the viewable area on a desktop, which is not great. You want to try to get it to about 12 to 15%. Okay, so that's one. The mega menu here, it's a little hard to read. And again, we haven't shown you an example of it, but it just sort of expands, and it just doesn't have a great experience as you kind of think about user experience, right? Mega menu is when you hover over one of the areas, like About Us or our services, our products, there's a menu that comes out that expands. That's called the mega menu. Social, it's fine in the top, but you could put it in the footer as well, right? I think in terms of different businesses, it can play a different role, right? And if it's obviously more prominent for your business, okay, put it in the top, but it can also be put down the bottom. The one area here we'd say about the navigation as well is there's no search, and they have a lot of pages. So one area that we would suggest they look at is adding a search here. And we'll talk more about search later too. And then they don't get to the content very quickly. We're going to show you an example of a company that does this well. Now, this is not, obviously, we're not saying you're competing against Nike, right? But if you look at Nike's header, right, it's a really thin header. Their mega menu's not overwhelming, right? They reorganize the navigation, they basically have it such that it's only 12 to 15% of the viewing area. If you look at it, it's really good best practice, right? And it gets you to what you really want quickly. Okay. Number 3, Bonnie, you want to take number 3, which is the mobile experience?
Yeah. So, with the website design right now, and with websites overall, because a majority of traffic is coming from other devices. Previously, it was just mainly desktop. Right now you have tablets, your phones, other monitors that people look at. It's very important that the website is, equally functional on all the devices. And one of the things that to consider is when you're considering a new website or for your existing site, make sure that the website is responsive. A responsive site means that it renders correctly on all the devices. It responds to the screen size and it adjusts. The developer can write the code in such a way that it adjusts according to the screen size. So make sure that the website is responsive. If you already have a website built and it's not responsive, you can also do an adaptive where the developer can, make some minor changes and you can make this site adapt to different screens. There's a slight difference between responsive and adaptive. So that's the difference. Is if you already have an existing site which is not responsive, we can make some minor changes. You can change the resolutions and stuff like that to make it adaptive on different screen sizes. One of the reasons why companies do it is for budget purposes, and also if they already have an existing site that they want to, make sure that it renders properly on other side, then you can make it adaptive. The third option is, which is, an old approach and one that we don't recommend, is having separate sites for desktop and, for mobile devices and so on and so forth. The only benefit there would be if you are doing a special promotion or something for mobile users, but for that case, you can have a separate site, or unless you have a different use case altogether, then you can do a site on mobile devices, but normally not recommended to have separate sites. So that's on the mobile experience. So make sure that the website is responsive and it's rendering properly across all devices. Do you want to move on? So this is just an example of how Privia Health, their site moves onto displays on the mobile device. You can see that the navigation, it moves to this hamburger style on the right hand side in the mobile devices, and all the content kind of adjusts accordingly. So this is a good example that we just wanted to share. Tim, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think typically where, it doesn't matter if you choose a responsive or adaptive site. I think just know that there's probably a little bit more design work that goes into an adaptive site because you're pouring the content into 3 different layouts. I think for most people, responsive is going to work. And, with this, you want to just make sure the breakpoints work. In this particular example, right, that we show here, in mobile, the photo cuts off a little bit. So one of the physicians here is cut off. Not the biggest deal, but, again, if you do this, you just want to make sure that your breakpoints, where you're breaking the site, right, for each of the different layouts works, right? And so make sure you check that for a mobile device for sure. All right, next. Bonnie, you want to take this one?
Yeah, so personalization. This is another area where, you want to personalize your website And the reason for that is you want to better engage your users, right? The more you can show products and services that are related to the user's interest and or intent, it's much more, your site is going to be much more engaging. One of the, e-commerce sites, especially if you have an e-commerce store, then that is definitely recommended. Some of the sites that do it well are, for example, Amazon, that does it well. Amazon figures out that you're logged in if you're not in a separate browser, and then they can show you data related to what your interests are and what your past purchases have been. Some of the other sites that do it, a non-healthcare related is probably like Netflix or Stitch Fix, or Blue Apron, like all those sites, they customize your experience when you visit those websites. So especially if you have an e-commerce store, we would definitely recommend that. If not, then Tim, you want to move to the next slide?
Sure.
If you do not have an e-commerce store, then also, you can still do some website personalization. And again, the reason this is important is not important. Like the reason this works is because you can better engage your users, you better connect with them, right? So the other areas around which you can do personalization is based on geographic location, gender, age, the pages that they have visited, certain content areas that they are interested in, keywords that they have searched for, events that they have, signed up for. Let's say, people can request an appointment on your site. The next time they log in, it'll be good for them to see, oh, you have an appointment registered with us for such and such date and time. All that information is helpful, so that the user does not have to log into a separate site and so on and so forth. Content can be customized, which is another area. The example that we are showing here on the screen is this hospital where you can choose your closest location so that they can show you information related to that particular hospital whenever the next time you visit their website. So just some areas, just points, things to consider when you're working on your website.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd add as we think about this is that we're not suggesting that you become the next Amazon, right? That would take a lot of time and investment. I think where we are, though, trying to get to is that if that's the customer expectation now, right? And the reason for showing you examples like Nike, Amazon, and others, and we're going to show you some others here later, is that's the customer expectation for what a website experience is, right? So if Amazon is kind of up here, you want to at least get closer to what that is, right? Because people expect that now, and people expect that from good websites. So personalization is certainly one of those areas. And certainly the next one is an area that people expect or have certain expectations around how it works. Now, first, search. I'll be honest, when we did a search for a lot of the healthcare websites, at least that we were going to use as examples, in a lot of cases, we didn't see a search on some of those. And some of them were very content heavy sites. I think for search is a really critical part of your website, right? And making sure it works well and making sure there's aspects of it are a big part of a website UX experience, right? A few areas that you want to pay attention to. Now, first, before we go there, you may not have an option for the search you currently use. For example, it may come with your content management system. It may be just involved with your whatever you've chosen in WordPress, et cetera. I would say, though, that there are some plugins and other things that you can look at. Solar is a pretty decent website. Is a pretty decent search appliance that you can customize. There's like Amazon Cloud Search, there's Oracle, there's a few others that you can look at. Again, a little bit probably more expensive than what just comes out of the box. But if you think about the user experience, it might be something that you want to invest in, okay? A few things that we think from a website UX experience are critical, right? One is autocomplete. Who sort of has kind of mastered this? Well, obviously Google has, right? Google used to actually have a search appliance that you could apply to your own website, but that as of 2019, they stopped kind of offering that. It was actually really great. internal search appliance, as you can guess. But autocomplete allows you to kind of type something, and then it'll give you suggestions to what you might be looking for, right? I think, that's an example here. So there are a lot of websites out there, healthcare websites that, this is actually Precision for Medicine. Again, the goal is not to trash any website or anything like that. It's just mostly to kind of point out that the expectation is for things like that. So if I'm looking for something, you can help me find it quicker, right? So think about that from a user experience standpoint. The second thing here, okay, this one doesn't have it, right? The second thing here is exact jargon. So we give an example, again, not a healthcare website, but for example, if I'm looking for action figures and I happen to just type in action toys, it's smart enough to know what I'm looking for, right? So do you need exact jargon on the site? And generally, particularly if it's somebody that you're selling to that may not know exactly what it is, you want to be able to configure your search such that it finds related things in that topic model, right? And will find pages for you, right? So action toys, so that's an example. Same thing here, right? Again, we're back at Precision Medical, and we don't want to trash them, but if I'm looking for diagnostics, diagnoses, anything regarding diagnostic something, right? Again, have the search kind of help me with the results that it gives. Help me find what I'm looking for, right? Don't just say nothing found, right? That's a bad user experience, right? If I'm searching for something related, okay? All right. Faceted search. Typically, faceted searches are for things like drilling down if you have an e-commerce site. So some of you may have an e-commerce site. For those of you who don't, you probably don't need a faceted search as much. But what facets do is it allows you to kind of drill down even further. So if I'm looking on this site, for example, for touchless catheters, I can search by, if you look on the left here, I can search by brand, by manufacturer. I could probably search by price and a lot of other things as I go down the page. It allows me to drill down even further, right? That is a good user experience because I want to narrow down, right, what I'm looking for there, okay? And finally, let's look at contextual search. Again, we're using Apple. It's probably, obviously Apple's got lots of resources to make this user experience great. But if you look, it gives me context on what results it's finding for me when I search for the iPhone 10, right? And perhaps it's not, they're pushing the 11 now, right, et cetera. But right, it allows me to kind of at least get some context into kind of what the page is about. If I look at a healthcare website, here's an example. I want to go back and forth, and again, not to trash anybody, but I want to go back and forth between the two experiences, right? So you see a result set that looks like this versus this. What's a better experience, right? And again, we're not comparing your site to Apple or anything like that. But if you think about what the expectation for the user experience is, this is key, right? They have contextual search, yes, right? But it's not great, right? There's hyphens between what the pages are called. There's nothing there that kind of makes me say, oh yeah, that's it, what I want to click on. Whereas this, right, it is, right? This is like the iPhone 11. Oh, okay, I really want to. It tells me about it. It's very clear. It's in full sentences, right? Those are things that, as you think about the user experience, are critical, right? To helping people find what they're looking for. Okay. Visual design. This is a site I love. And I always use this when I teach, we teach digital marketing at Georgetown. I always use this site, and the students get tired of hearing it from me. But Fitbit is a beautiful site. And it's a beautiful site for a few reasons. There's a few reasons why this site really works, right? One, if you look at the visual design for the landing pages, right, they're airy, right? And what we mean by that is there's space between the promotions. Not everything is packed together, right? So there's space, there's air in here, right? Where you can kind of see, in particularly the hero image up at the top. And then they're not kind of pushing all these things at us at once. So in any given screen, there's not more than 4 to 5 items that I'm looking at. So in any part of the user experience, they're not packing so many things in there that it's chaos for me, right? I don't know where, my eye doesn't know where to go, etc. This is one of the big areas that if you ever work with agencies, they will typically design a user experience for you that only has 4 to 5 items in any viewing window, right? A few other things for landing pages. As you think about the visual design, people generally read in a Z. So it's the top, then they kind of move down to the lower left, and then they move to the right, right? So if you think about how you promote things, that's kind of where you want to get to. And then if you look at this landing page in particular, right, there's not a lot of text on it. So you're able to kind of scan the landing page in such a way that you kind of find what you're looking for and then go to it, right? That is great visual design. All right, let's go to another example. And again, we have some actually positive healthcare examples, and I don't want to just say that all the healthcare examples we're finding are negative. But if you look at this site, right, and I want you to look at the difference between this site and this site. And again, they're not selling the same things. But if you think about the way these pages look, right? You look at the difference between the two pages. There's a lot of text here. It's not so airy. It's packed in, right? Visually, it's not separated. There's no separation. Everything is pushed together, right? So when you look at this from a visual design perspective, maybe this works for them. And again, if it does, great, right? But if you look at it from a visual design perspective, this is chaos to the eye. Right? Because the eye doesn't know where to go, right? Right? Does it look at the top? Does it look at the nav? Does it look at the red? Does it look at the text there? Does it look at the text below that? Does it go to the photo, right? There is no hierarchy. If you think about it from this perspective, right? There's hierarchy here, right? I think we got a question on that too, but maybe there's more there. Brian, I don't know if there's any question on that piece in particular, so.
The question is just somebody, it's not a question, it's just somebody thanking us that it's great content.
Just a comment. You're all set.
Okay, all right. But anyway, as you kind of think about it, that's how you want to look at it, right? So 4 to 5 elements in a viewing window, like there's a clear hierarchy versus something like this, where you're just cramming information in front of people, which is what you don't want to do on a landing page, okay? Number 7, this is an area, I've had past students that have talked to me about like landing pages and websites, and they think this is sort of a frivolous area. I actually would argue that it isn't. And colors and fonts matter. Okay, so let's take each one. Let's look at colors. And I'm going to look at like sort of the pinnacle of visual design, which is Apple, right? And if you take a look at what Apple is here, right? So what we looked at is, and there's tools that you can use. Mozilla has this great website color analyzer so that you can download. It's just an extension on your browser. And you can kind of take a look at the colors Apple's using here. So they use 15 colors that they define on their style sheet, right? I think one thing to notice is that, and that's good, right? That's a pretty good amount, right? One thing to look at here is that all the colors are part of the same palette. In other words, they work together. Does that make sense? So the blues kind of work with that gray, and they're all part of that same continuum of color, right? So that it's a visually a pleasing experience, okay? And again, not to pick on healthcare technology advisors, but if you take a look at the colors that are defined on the style sheet here, right? They are all over the place, right? And there's less of a continuum from what you see there. And it just ends up to being a little bit more of a chaotic color. What you want to try to do, right? There are some sites actually we've seen when we've gone through testing and things like that. There are some sites we've seen that have had 35 colors defined in their CSS. That's way too many, right? You want to try to limit it so that you're not creating chaos for the eye from a visual standpoint, okay? So, and then keep the colors in a particular palette, right? So it's all part of that continuum of color, as you can see with Apple, right? Versus this. Now, they're not doing a bad job on having only 19 colors defined, okay? But if you think you add this on top of what, for example, you have images that are a certain color, if you have multiple images that are different colors, how do you do that, right? How do you work that in? That's going to add more color to the page, which can add more quote unquote chaos for a user from an experience standpoint. Okay. Let's look at fonts. Most of you should choose a font and stick with it. Okay. We've seen sites, and we've actually just had a recent client that we had that we saw 3 different fonts that he was using on his homepage. And I think that's where, again, from a consistency standpoint, you want to keep a visual identity that's consistent. Use one font and then just create different sizes of it, right? Who does that well? Obviously, Apple does that well, right? They have, this is their famous font is SF Pro Text, right? They use one font and they just choose different sizes of it. And regardless of that's a small message, a call to action, whatever else that is, right? And if you look at the, again, Privia Healthcare, not bad. They just have a couple fonts. They have a different size, right? Again, from a visual experience standpoint, you want to keep it together, right? Just keep it consistent. And I think that's the only thing we're trying to get across there. The last thing, I know we don't have a slide on it, but we were going to talk a little bit about calls to action. I think one big area here is to have calls to action that one, have action oriented things to them, right? Like learn more or whatever that is, but have the color of your call to action button stand out. And I think where I could provide a good example, and again, a good example is Fitbit. Fitbit does a great job, right? If you look at their site, of having calls to action that really stand out on the page. So if they've got a product and they ask you to buy it, that call to action is very, very prominent. And it can make a difference between people finding and checking out and not. Bonnie, do you want to add anything to that? I think as we kind of go forward.
No, all that is great. Yeah, the call to action point is, it's good to remind people on a regular basis that where we want to drive them to, right? Is it contact us or buy now, free trial, any sort of call to action that we have. It's good to kind of reinforce that without being without overdoing it. That is just one thing that I would say. Call to action usually are maybe on the top right, or as people are scrolling the page, you can have the call to action hover, and you can have one at the bottom. So that's just one thing that I would add on the call to action thing.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Bonnie, go ahead on this one.
So the main thing that we want to say is just take a look at what the overall goal for the website is, and create a website accordingly, right? So if it's e-commerce, then your goal is product purchases. So obviously you want to have call to action and your experience catered that way, and then you want to create KPIs for how people are engaging with your site, how much time they're spending on the pages, what products they're looking at, what is the user journey, how do they browse across, do they go from the home page to the product page to the checkout pages, and where are they bouncing, so kind of learning the user experience. KPIs, somebody asked what is KPIs, is key performance indicators. So just, identifying what are the key performance indicators for your website are like bounce rate, average time on the website, how much people are scrolling, where people are coming from, those sort of things. What is the click-through rate on your website, like where people are clicking on your site, so on and so forth. So just keeping all that in mind, and creating your website with your overall end goal, right? So I was just talking about e-commerce, but if lead generation is your goal, then you obviously want to push people, not push, but you want to direct people for them to fill out a form, for them to get more information, and that could be in terms of requesting an appointment or downloading something, or just filling out information to contact them, right? So if that is the goal, then create your website from that point of view. And also the other thing to figure out is from what sources your audiences are coming onto the website. So you can also adjust your website accordingly, right? So if people are coming from organically from search, then those people are, they're looking for something, you want to present them, you want to point them to the respective page that they're looking for, and then from there, create your website experience accordingly. But if users are coming from an ad campaign, then you want to point them to a landing page where with the end goal of either lead generation or product purchase. So that is just one thing that I would like to say. Tim, you want to add something on that one?
No, and again, the KPIs generally, if you're going to set them, they are, so let's say you set a goal of X amount of revenue, right? Let's say you want to generate X amount of revenue off your website. Your KPIs are really those measures of how you're progressing on getting toward that end goal. Okay, so here's an example, like you want a certain number of, to generate X amount of revenue, you need a certain number of visitors. You need a certain number of people getting to your product page. You want a certain click-through on certain campaigns. So that's really what the KPIs are there for, if that makes sense. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the next slide. Sorry. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Yeah, so next, let's talk about just in general SEO and user experience. So we covered all the point about user experience, how you can work with your developer designer to create a good user experience for your website. But how does search engine optimization play a role into this? I think they kind of go hand in hand, obviously, because when you're developing your site, you want to make sure that it's optimized for search engines, right? So the few things that we would say is, obviously start with the keyword research, make sure the content that is on your website has all the right keywords on what people are searching for. And, obviously if the keyword research, that is something that you guys can do on your own, that's fine. Just think of keywords that people might be looking for when they are trying to find your products online. Or if you need help from somebody like us, we can help you do the keyword research to find out what are the important keywords that you should embed on your site. The important thing with keyword research is you want to consider this search volume, because if a particular keyword that you think is important but does not have that much search volume, then you're not going to get as much traffic onto your website. So start with the keyword research and then optimize your pages by using those keywords on your pages, embedding the keywords on your H1 tag, on your title tag, on the URL of the pages, the meta tag. These are all the tags that I'm talking about. These are all important elements to improve the on-page optimization for your website. So, make sure that you include all your keywords within these tags. Your images, have descriptive, provide descriptions to your images, give them proper file names, give them proper alt tags, because these are the things that the search engine will look at, when people are searching online. And then most importantly, create the right content, right? Because in the end, user experience is going to be about not just the look and feel, but also delivering the right content that users are looking for. One thing I also want to mention is internal linkings. Make sure that your pages are linking or are interconnected, because you don't want orphan pages on your website, because that doesn't help much with SEO. So make sure that each and every pages are internally linked to either your home page or other pages on the site.
Okay, we got something here.
Orphan page is just a random page that is not connected to or not linked from anywhere. It's just a random page that you created. Then it doesn't help from SEO point of view, because apart from the on-page optimization for SEO, the other important factor is how many links are coming to that particular page. You know, what's the inbound links. So if a page does not have any links, neither internal nor external, by external, I mean other sites, then it's not going to rank pretty well.
Yeah, generally from an SEO perspective, you want to have at least 5 links going to any particular page, right? So what Bonnie's talking about is you don't want to create a page over here and then not link to it, because if you don't link to it, why should Google show it, right? In other words, if it's not important to you enough to link it somewhere, right, why should Google show it as well, if that helps? Okay, let's keep going. Telling a story. So this is one of the bigger challenges, I think, as we think about websites and we think about how you tell your own story. You know, a lot of websites are, and it goes back to the old example. We'll use this for sell me this pen, if you guys know that story, right? How do you sell a pen? Well, you don't just say, oh, the pen is great. It's got these features. It comes in black, red, green. It writes smoothly. It's got a great handle, got a great grip, right? That isn't the best way to sell pen. The best way to sell pen, as the old story goes, and I think that goes back to the film and the book, is probably the idea that you basically have to establish the need and challenge of the customer. So the best way to sell pen is you basically tell somebody, hey, can you sign this? And the person says, well, I need a pen. Well, see, you establish the need, right? So I think as you think about connecting with your audiences, part of your telling, what you're trying to do on the website is tell a story. You're trying to say you understand their challenges, and we help you solve those challenges. So that's part of what we call that narrative as you kind of think about a website, right? So if you look, here's an example of the Mayo Clinic. And by the way, the last example that Bonnie was showing about the balancing SEO, that actually came up in page 1. So that was a healthier example. That was a really positive example, right? Because they balance that good visual with the SEO on the page. So this is the Mayo Clinic, and this is an example we just pulled out because it's a nice example of saying, you know, for the Mayo Clinic, their customers, they have questions about a lot of things, right? And so, and they're sort of acknowledging that process, right? The unknown is just a question. We help you find answers, right? So it sort of says, these are the challenges you have. We know as a patient, we know you have these challenges. Here's how we help solve them. And then the page kind of goes down to, we're the #1 hospital, we're the trusted leader. And then you can start selling the pen. But what the Mayo Clinic did here was they established, we know you have these issues, and you want that to resonate with the customer, if that makes sense. Okay. So that's one way to do it as you kind of think about how to develop those and how to develop your landing pages, is to tell and acknowledge that customer issue, or that the issues that customers face, because they want to know, this page is for me, right? So that's a big aspect of anything you do with website design and development. Bonnie, do you have anything else on that you want to share?
No, I think you covered everything pretty much.
Okay. All right. So finally, about forms and lead generation. You know, the best practice, and this is, again, just from a lead generation perspective, and we're only talking about forms here, but I would suggest you create your forms, if you can, using your marketing automation platform. And what we mean by that is that it's the easiest way. A lot of marketing automation platforms, let's say you're like HubSpot, right, will allow you to actually create a page that's you know, it's like a subdomain of your page, let's say, and you can then have a form that's created by them that goes directly into your platform, right? So your email platform where you're storing the data. So HubSpot is kind of like a quasi email platform, marketing automation, CRM, right? If you can, try to do that, because what you want to do with all your forms is make sure that there is a process somehow where you're connecting that form to your marketing automation system, your CRM, et cetera. Okay. The best way to do that is if you create that with the marketing automation platform itself. If you can't do that, figure out a way to connect it, because you don't want to respond individually to things, right? Eventually, if you scale, you're not going to be able to, right? So try to do it in an automated fashion. Second thing on forms, keep it short. you know, we see, like, for example, this is the Anderson Clinic for Orthopedics. And I think, you know, for just being able to ask a question and submit your question, this is a lot of information, right? They don't need address, city, state, right? For a lot of this, they can shorten the form, right? And the shorter you can make the form, the less imposing it is to the customer. And again, remember that there's two things you have to balance. You have to balance your needs from an information gathering standpoint and the customer need, right? The customer wants to fill in as the least amount possible in order to ask their question. Okay. So put yourself, this is an example where you want to put yourself in the customer's shoes. Okay. The last point I will make on this is that based on what's entered, you want to be able to automate those messages that go out to those customers. So whether that's a thank you for submitting your request, whether that's a follow-up, whether that's a reminder of other services you provide, you want to be able to set up a journey for that individual, right? Based on what they have entered, or a follow-up of some kind, and be very clear for the customer on that. That is great customer experience, right? That's great website UX. Okay, so Bonnie, I don't know if you want to add anything else to that, that you're the marketing automation wizard for us. So
yeah, I mean, you know, creating a customized journey is something that helps to move users down the marketing funnel, which is, you know, towards the end goal of a sale or an appointment or a free trial. So, you know, definitely people should take that into consideration when they're designing the contact form or the lead gen form on the website.
Yep. Okay. All right. And I think that kind of, we'll talk a little bit, Bonnie, you want to talk a little bit about some of the services and solutions we have? And
so you know, I mean, all the things that we mentioned here, you know, so Marketing Nice Guys, we as a company, we are experts in digital marketing training and digital marketing services. So anything that, you know, you guys need help with in terms of your SEO strategy, your content strategy, your brand narrative, or even something on the paid side, you know, we can definitely help you guys out on that end. Or if you just need consultation services where we, you know, where we can not only create the strategy, but also help you implement the strategy, we can also definitely take that. And, you know, we also do one-to-one training. If, you know, if you're looking to do these things on your own, you can just sign up for our training program on our website, and then we can train you on that basis. One of the other features that I want to, the other product that we have, I want to mention is the marketing help desk, where it's something where, you know, you get ongoing monthly consultation from, you know, digital marketing experts, and you can create support tickets for any issues that you have, or any campaigns that you're running, or just in general, if you want us to take a look at something, you know. So Marketing Help Desk is another product that can be, you know, beneficial for you guys.
okay.
So yeah.
Just like an example of our clients, I think with everything else we do, we provide data about how well we're doing. I think, you know, we try to be very transparent about that. And then lastly, just really, you can contact us at contact@marketingniceguys.com. Bonnie's at bonnie@marketingniceguys.com. I'm at tim@marketingniceguys.com.
Easy.
And then questions, right? Go ahead, Bonnie. Anything else?
No, I mean, that is it. Hopefully the webinar was good, and you know, good information for everybody that you can take from here. Yeah.
10 minutes. Yeah. So anybody have any questions that they want to ask at this point? Any burning questions about the website?
And Bonnie, I've got a few, and these are often things that come up as, you know, my team and I work with different healthcare entrepreneurs. You know, obviously there's a lot to unpack, so I encourage everyone to reach out to you guys. But Tim, explain the funnel a little bit. I think that's something when my TP team works with other organizations, we explained the marketing funnel and that digital marketing is a numbers game, and how an effective site lends itself to whatever the outcomes are or the KPIs are that you want to see. So help us just, high level, the marketing funnel, the website's role, and an effective website's role in getting you to where you need to be.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the marketing funnel essentially is, it was created, I don't know, way back in 1930, I think. St. Elmo Lewis, right? And what it posits is that you have to make people aware of who you are, your brand, et cetera. And then you have to take those people who are aware and you have to engage them. And there's going to be less people who are aware. There's going to be less people who are engaged and who, work with you than the people who are aware of you. And then the people who you're engaging, there's going to be fewer people who convert. So to your point about the numbers game, right? What you want to do is, obviously you want to try to get as many people possible to each stage of the marketing funnel, if that makes sense. So the more people that are aware of you, so this is why companies do Super Bowl ads, right? The more people that are aware of you, the more potential you have at the bottom of the funnel. Because if you convert a certain percentage down to each level, I'm going to make a certain number of people aware. I'm going to have a percentage of those that is going to be engaged, right? And that I acquire to my list. And then there's going to be another percentage of those that I acquire and engage that are going to convert. And I think that's where a website, if you look at it just from the website itself, is actually a funnel, if you look at it, right? So you have people who visit the page, let's say it's an e-commerce site, and just to be really straight, right? You have a number of people who visit the e-commerce site. You have a number of people who visit a product page on that site. That's probably a little bit less. You have a number of people who put something in the cart. That's just a little bit less than that. And then you have a number of people who actually convert. So if you look at that, that's a funnel in itself, right? And so the more people you can get to that website experience, the better, right? That's from the external marketing you're doing. The more people you can get people to come to that product page, that's links from whatever your landing page is to that product page. The number of people who can then kind of convert down into putting something in the cart, right? You're going to be able to do that a little bit better. And then obviously from the cart, you want to have a great experience so that you convert those people out. If you think about that whole process, that really is a funnel, and you're trying to drive the maximum number of people to each of those, what we call 3 stages: top of the funnel, middle funnel, lower funnel. Does that help?
Yeah, and I often, heard you guys talk about this. I've said it myself. I mean, all funnels are built the same way, but no 2 funnels are the same.
Yeah.
The one thing that I think you guys clarified throughout this is having a website isn't always about lead conversion, nor is it always about driving leads. But if those are the KPIs, your key performance indicators, or that's what's important to your site, that's what you should build it for. So, Bonnie, you mentioned earlier, you need to understand your KPIs. You need to understand the point of your site. So if someone, has a website and now they're really leveraging it to get more clients, how do they understand which KPIs are most important?
Yeah, I mean, so what is their conversion rate? That is, I would say it would be the main one. Is how many people they're getting onto their website and how many users are actually converting. So they can, from again, back to the numbers game, from there they can backtrack how many more people they need to make aware or bring to their site to, then eventually convert, right? Or what are the things that they can do to improve their conversion rate on their site? And by conversion rate, I mean, whatever, it could be something like a sale or a contact us or anything that whatever you define as a conversion, right? So you can, let's say people are going onto your landing pages from your ads and they're not converting, then you can know that, okay, there are things that we need to fix on the landing page. Maybe the user experience on the landing page, maybe we need better call to actions, so on and so forth. So that are some of the things that, I would say that's one of an important KPI. bounce rate, how many people are coming onto the pages and bouncing off, how much time they're spending on the website. What is the and you can have all this information through Google Analytics. What is the user experience? What is the user funnel on the website? Where do people go from the homepage? So on and so forth. So obviously all these KPIs are different for different users. I'm just saying on a high level, like these are the KPIs which are available, but obviously you can create custom KPIs based on whatever your needs and goals are. Yeah.
And this is kind of related to a question someone asked in the Q&A here, and I'll ask each of you to speak to it, but also want to remind that this is actually something that Tim, you and Bonnie talked about in the previous webinar, so I encourage that person to go to the Marketing Nice Guys page on YouTube. Talk about analytics, organic search, and how to improve that. So we're talking SEO here, tools for and helpful tips for better lead generation through organic search, keywords, and so forth. Like, what are the top 2-3 things people should be talking about?
Okay, so go ahead, Bonnie. If you want to go first, I'll go second.
I mean, I'll just keep it, one of the main things is make sure that you have Google Analytics. It's free. You have Google Analytics on your website, right? And then you can also connect it with Google Search Console so that you can see what search terms users are searching on Google that is leading them to your website. So with Google Analytics can give you all the stats about your website. Google Search Console can tell you all about what organic search terms are driving to your site. So you can take all of that. And then in terms of the helpful tips to increase lead generation, I think that's a whole different ball game altogether. And I think we did a webinar on that in the past. So if you visit on the Marketing Nice Guys YouTube channel, I think the previous webinar that we did was increasing lead generation for healthcare websites. It was a 40-minute, we went over different tools and tips and tactics on how you can do lead generation. So I would just point you to that one.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd add to that, if you're going to think about analytics and lead generation, is you want to be able to set up goals in Google Analytics, right? So that if you've got a particular goal in mind, whether that's like filling in a lead form, let's say, right? You want to be able to track how that came in. So you want to set up a goal conversion in Google Analytics to be able to track that exact behavior, right? And so those are things that, again, we can help. If you don't know how to do, we can help you do that. It's pretty straightforward, but it's something that's obviously very critical for lead generation. As you think about driving leads, you want to be able to track how those people came in, where they came from, and you want to be able to track that goal conversion through that process. So, other questions, looks like here.
I think that takes us to the top of the hour, guys. So I actually went in and put the 2 webinars you had done previously, the one on SEO and doing the keyword audit, in the chat for anyone who's interested. Same with the webinar you did on how to drive leads for your healthcare business on a budget. There's a lot of folks here who are entrepreneurs and trying to figure out how to make this work and while driving more leads at the same time. Yep. So again, you can see the email there to contact both of them. And for Tim, it's tim@marketingniceguys.com. And for Bonnie, it's bonnie@marketingniceguys.com, BONEY. Any last words, guys, before we call it?
Thank you, Ryan.
No, thank you. Yeah. Again, make sure your website experience is great. I think that's a key part of every bit of digital marketing you do. So, and don't skimp on it, I think, is the main lesson.
Very good advice. And this is it represents you, it gets you leads, it does a lot for you if you do it right. So Tim, Bonnie, thanks so much, appreciate it. We'll definitely do more of these, so we'll see you all at the next one.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Thank you all.
Cheers, guys. Bye.